going to be breaking away from fashion and makeup for a little while for a lively discussion of midlife crisis. If you're between the ages of 45 and 60, stay tuned. Even though you might not be going through this yet, or you are right now, there's things you can do to cope. Through this yet, or you are right now, there's things you can do to cope. This happens to many women and in varying degrees. Maybe you are within it right now, or you are about to. And although I have already been through it, I have 3 daughters right now who are between those ages, the youngest being 46, the oldest being 62, and they have or are going through it or have gone through it in various stages. So get your water, nice cold water, or a cup of coffee, get settled in, and I'd love your feedback on all of this too. Now, that term mid-crisis has generally, for years and years, been strictly given to men who normally suffer this somewhere around 40. They go through it a little bit earlier. And with them, it's more of a buy the red Porsche, where am I going with my work? Maybe I need an affair or divorce or something. Theirs is a bit different from the way a woman goes through a midlife crisis. So it's not all for men. Let's forget that. And we've all been conditioned, I guess, over the years to help our husbands through these crises. Now, every man obviously does not go through it, but for those who have and it has not gone well, I hope you're not a victim of one of those, but there are ways to recover, and we're here to discuss that. Now, a midlife crisis doesn't last the whole time. They say that a woman's midlife crisis lasts anywhere from 2 to 5 years. You can have perhaps one in the earlier years of midlife crisis. It can be fairly short. And it's all a matter of choices, they say. There's a lot you can do to cope depending on what the factors are that causes the midlife crisis to begin with. And let's talk a bit about some of those factors. Perhaps some wrinkles are starting to set in, or perhaps she is feeling the effects of incontinence, or that might be a little later on. But different things have struck with her so far as her body goes. And one of the other factors, and it's a strong one, is now a midlife crisis in a woman can be triggered by health, by the way she feels her biological body is changing, the children leaving the nest, and that usually is called the empty nest syndrome. Now, that's also conditional in a way that perhaps the children have gone off and a woman doesn't really have much contact with them anymore. If there still is contact, it's a lot better. But that can be remedied by making sure you keep close contact with your children, and it does get better, believe me, because that's one of the things I went through. But later in life, somewhere around 56, 57, because I did have children later in life, all through those years, having had 6 children, I didn't suffer for that until I was probably somewhere around 56. But I got over it. Now, one of the biggies in this conversation is the menopause crisis. At a certain age in that period, every woman goes through this. Now, it can be early. A lot of women suffer it in their early 40s, or some women don't even go through this until they're in their mid-50s. But it can strike women in a variety of ways. Mostly you hear about the hot flashes and a bit of anxiety, a bit of depression, and just a general feeling that self-confidence is starting to leave you because you're noticing the differences physically, you're biologically too. And I'm just going to tell you a bit about mine. Way back in the old days, the fix for that was going on estrogen and progesterone because women were losing all of this in their body. But eventually, this was found not to be a good thing. And eventually, they stopped it. Now, I didn't have to go on this, and mine was. I guess I started my hot flashes. I didn't realize what they were when I was about 49. And my glasses used to fog up. At the time, I was selling real estate. And this is a funny rabbit hole story. I was sitting at a table in my office opposite a male client who we were writing up an offer for a house he was buying. And as I was writing, I just had this flash of the heat. And those of you who are suffering it know what I'm talking about. And I couldn't see out of my glasses. And he said, Mary Ellen, give me your glasses. Let me clean them. You're having a hot flash, aren't you? And I said, well, I don't know what. Well, that started it. A few days later, I was in the post office mailing some things out. And it happened again. And the lady behind the counter told me she knew what was happening to me. And she told me to go to the health food store and get 3 different pills. And one of them was the oil of primrose. And I know that is the ingredients are associated with what was one of the ingredients in the estrogen pill or whatever that was. And so I went. I can't remember the other 2 pills that went with it, but there were 3 pills. And I took them religiously daily. And about 3 weeks or a month later, Moosey and I were in Las Vegas having a long weekend. And we were sitting in Caesar's Palace having a sushi meal. I distinctly remember this because it was so exciting. And as Moosey and I were sitting there chatting away, I realized that I had not had a hot flash, well, for a week or 2 or however long it was. Now, fortunately, my life at that time was busy, and that's why I think I didn't suffer the anxiety, no depression, no bodily changes that I noticed at the time, other than these hot flashes. So I would say I was one of the lucky ones going through that particular phase of my midlife crisis. And I still had children around me. I had lots of grandchildren at that point, too, because we had the 6 children, and they were getting married and having babies youngish. So I was busy. Plus, I was substitute teaching at the time and selling real estate, lots to do. And I think that because my life was full and happy and I had everybody still around, I did not suffer all those bad effects of it, except for the hot flashes. So I would say several of you viewers have asked me how I got through menopause and what were my symptoms. And I must say, that's it. I was one of the lucky ones. However, later on in life, at 56, I did go through a bit of that, and that had to do with empty nest syndrome and moving and a few other things. And I'll tell you about that later on. Now, there are many other factors entering into a midlife crisis. You can be a woman who might still have some teenage or older children at home. You might be caring for a parent or having lost a parent recently. And this sometimes coincides with the empty nest syndrome, and you've lost your parents, and perhaps you've had a divorce. Many of these things can befall you at any point, but they can also strike at one time. And all of a sudden you're in over your head, you develop a bit of depression, and these are real symptoms. And fixes for that are obviously seeing a doctor, being able to perhaps get medication for your depression or your anxiety, therapy, anything like that. Now, the other thing that a lot of women go through, and I hear this all the time, I do have gals that are in their 50s and 60s, and a lot of them say they feel old at that age. And for the life of me, well, probably because I'm 86 years old, I can't understand that because I didn't really feel too old until about 6 months ago when I tore the meniscus in my knee, and that set me over the hill. But you are not old, and if you're feeling old because you think that your facial structure has changed, or you're suffering the all those remedies, the incontinence, the arthritis. Now, health and diseases can obviously be a big part of this too. And that's something that you have to handle on the side. But the general mid-crisis is emotional and biological, really. Now, in this crisis, there are 6 factors that you go through from beginning to end, and they begin with denial, anger, despair, and eventually wind up with acceptance and gratitude. And you generally will go through this period, some very quickly, some it might take a little bit longer as you're suffering all these symptoms of your biological and physical changes. However, there are coping mechanisms for this, and really I'm going to call them choices, because if you choose to do these certain things, you will get through this and realize that after 60, there's a big, wonderful world out there for you. Whether or not your children have left the nest, whether or not you're divorced and you're alone right now, there's still always hope if you want it. Many women are very, very happy being alone and living very full lives. But you have to make the choices of number one, self-love, treating yourself, doing what you love, and being good to yourself. There is also your health. You have to do certain things to keep yourself going and to keep feeling well. And we know what those are in the way of exercise and diet. And having torn my meniscus and still suffering bone-on-bone arthritis in both knees, boy, I believe that mobility thing and exercise is so important, because I definitely, 6 months ago, I could romp around with my daughters, antiquing, thrifting for 5 or 6 hours. Now my energy is not going there because my legs aren't working as well. But they say that's if you want to live, and I'm going to call this comfortably, physically comfortably into your 80s and higher, then you have to do certain things with your body to keep yourself going. So taking care of your health is a big one. And having gratitude for what you do have, getting out there and tapping on that sisterhood. Now, here's where I think this is so important. Whether you have daughters or granddaughters, or if you don't have that, do you have a good friend or your sisters, some woman who has gone through this and you can talk to this about, or me, even me? Do that, because that sisterhood of women is a strong support system. And I know a lot of you say, no, I don't need that. But if you do, then tap into it, because that will help you. Now, trying to keep in touch with your children that have flown the nest, that's important, whether it's by Zoom or telephone or computer or what, and you visit them, just do it. Let them know you love them, that you want to see them, and they will respond, believe me. I guess some of the other changes, and of course I'm still noticing this and probably been going through this for years, is your disruption of sleep. And my sleep cycles have totally changed. I used to love to sleep, especially, of course, in my teenage years and 20s. My mom, I remember when I was at home before I was married, could hardly ever get me out of bed. And now, if I sleep 2.5 hours to 3 hours and wake up and look at the clock, whether it's 2 a.m. or 6 a.m., I'm thrilled. Sometimes I'll get up, go to the bathroom, have some water, go back to sleep, or I go back to the bed and I go through my iPad and my YouTube, whatever I have to do for an hour or two, then go back to sleep. And I know many of you have that same problem. So that sleep adjustment might not ever get back to what you want, but try and get in those hours. Even if it's a snooze in the daytime, go ahead and take it. And as you get into those years, the 60s, do take short rests so that your energy, and of course now I have to do that all the time, but I'm way beyond that now. I'm talking to all you gals that are in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, because I've been there, and I have 3 daughters that I'm closely going through it with them. And they're all suffering in different degrees. Now, my Margie, who is my middle daughter, Margie is 58. And at 42, she had a hysterectomy due to fibroids. However, they left her ovaries in, and so she did suffer all the other effects of menopause. And the worst one was the hot flashes. In fact, she still says she has it. But, I think women all do now as you get older. I don't like the heat anymore. And I am a glistener, as I call myself. I perspire, and I'm wiping under my eyes in the summertime. Up here, I get hugely hot in the middle of the night. Margie goes through that. She said she also noticed deep lines at that time after her hysterectomy in her forehead, and works on them and uses creams and oils to lessen them. But that was one thing when I asked her, what were your symptoms that you noticed? And of course, she did deal with the menopause. Now, she has baby granddaughters now, and her children live locally and she sees them. So that's okay with Margie. Debbie, on the other hand, I don't think I ever heard Deb complain about menopause. I'm trying to think back. I know she went through it because Debbie is now 62, I believe. I don't think any of my daughters look it. Maybe that's just because I'm a mom. But Debbie is one of those people, and I guess she's like me. She can slough things off no matter what's going on in her life, and she's had some rough times. However, her spirits have always been high. She's always been full of positive energy and busy as hell, I'm going to say it. She has worked all her life and is a very successful woman. She works extremely hard. She has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does she have another one on the way? I'm losing track with all my great grandkids. We have 14 greats now. 2, I think, are on the way. But Debbie has grandchildren too, and they're always over, or she's seeing them. So her life is full. She keeps such close contact with me. As a matter of fact, I have on another Debbie blouse. I know you get tired of me saying that. I don't have to spend much money on clothes anymore. And everything that I get, this is a sheer top that's different color stripes. And at any rate, I got off track. So that's been Deb. I guess I could say that the mid-crisis with Deb, maybe it hasn't even hit her yet. She has her down moments, but I don't think they're biological. She's had a hip replacement and has extremely bad arthritis like me. We've inherited this from my mom and dad in her fingers and hands. But once again, Debbie gets through it and life goes on. Now, I know my daughter-in-law's, Matt's wife, Cindy. Cindy is in her, what is she, young 50s or maybe approaching mid-50s. And I know Cindy's going through the sweats of menopause, getting hot, and the energy and all of that right now. But she works real hard too. She is the president of their medical device business and works real hard. Plus her mother, who lives back in North Carolina, is not well. And she's going back and forth all the time helping out her mother. Plus she has 3 teenagers at home that she's very busy with too. So I always see Cindy laughing. Yeah, there's times when I see her hand up when I walk in the door and she's hot as can be. But I think it's attitude, acceptance and attitude, and just saying, I'm going to get through this. So I think that's one of your best coping mechanisms is your choice to have a positive attitude about this. Now, if it's severe, honestly, then you need help, right? So, what else can I say? I did read a quote about life during these midlife years that I love, and I'm going to read it to you. Here's the quote. "The beauty of life lies not in length, but in how we choose to live it." And that's so true, isn't it, ladies? So I don't know how I can capture an audience of 50 and 60-year-olds. We do have almost 20% of them, but somehow I think that it would be fun to have more women as part of our subscriber family in those years, because as an older woman who's been in this and who has daughters going through this now, I think I can be of help to any of you or some of you. And there's so much about doing certain things within those years, in framing your life and making choices that reflects on how you're doing in your 70s and 80s. And I think that I can be a pretty good help with some of those things in the way of choices. And I've not always made the right choices on everything. But I do believe in the saying that, there's been an awful lot of talk about old age, the old age syndrome of what's going on right now in this world, and being too old for this and too old for that. And there are different stages of old age. And and this is in particular to your cognitive behavior. And yes, dementia does happen to many people as they get older. And that's another fascinating subject as to what causes it. Recently, I saw Leslie Stahl in one of those 90-minute things that she used to do years ago on TV. And it was a study of people in their 80s and 90s and how I think there were 6 or 8 of them that they studied and did all sorts of tests by doctors on, and they followed them all through these years. And the latest one I saw was the other day, 6 years later, and they have evaluated all of them again, and it was shocking to see how certain ones progressed or stayed the same, and to what happened to the one in particular. I thought she was absolutely amazing at 90, and at 96, she couldn't even remember the visit of Leslie 6 years ago, nor could she remember the date or the year. And the only way they can study the brain to great extent is after death. And 1 or 2 of the people had died, and they had studied the brains, and what they found was amazing. Maybe I can talk about that in another video, but once again, I love learning new things. And by the way, that is one of your coping mechanisms for getting through this midlife crisis. Just keep learning about whatever you're attracted to. And I always want to know more about everything. And I think it's so important to your cognitive behavior, because there's something in that cortex of your brain that the more you exercise it, the better it gets. Oh yes, it's true. Now I know there's some other things that I want to do. I'm at a standstill in my rock painting. I know a lot of you are anxious to hear about that. And I have to go back to the rock yard and visit my pal Carlos, because I do not have the rocks that I chose that are standing rocks to finish my 3 wise men and a shepherd are not tall enough for the scale that I'm going for here. I showed you in the last video that I finished one of the wise men, and it was a wise man that had an unusual shaped rock with sort of a head on it. So I had to do a kneeling sideways wise man. And when I put him against the rest of the rocks that are kind of shaped like this with a flat bottom, they're as tall as he is kneeling. So that's out of scale. So I need to trade in some rocks. So I think I'll go down maybe today and see if, I know he's going to laugh at me, but I've just got to go hunting again for maybe 6-inch, 2 of them, at least 2, maybe 3, because I'm going to do a shepherd too. So that's with my rocks. Thank you for enjoying my painting. And at this time, I think I'll try and do a little bit more actual painting with you, because you like to watch me do the physical painting. Now, I will take a run through Colleen's Grape Arbor, where I told you I think they must have 100 rocks that they've painted over 10 years on their family trips way up to the north to this campsite with their RV. And they spent a lot of time in the redwoods painting these rocks. They're so cute. They're very different from mine. They're not nativity scenes, but they're all kinds of things. I hope you all had a very happy 4th. We didn't do too much at all, really. I did bake an apple pie, and we had it last night with vanilla ice cream. I mean, how all-American can you get with that? So it was a quiet one until the fireworks started, and we were very high up on a hill. And I knew that Shamu, my cat, would not like that. But Shamu got out of the house, ran out because he heard the noises inside. And they started here about 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. And all down in the valley, in fact, we had a great view of them. The whole valley from here, almost all the way into LA, you could just see at the base of the mountains these fireworks going up for miles. And it's quite a sight. And the cat got out and got so upset with all these boom, boom, booms, constantly, never let up until probably 1 or 2 in the morning. About half an hour later, I went out again, and he was just standing there like a deer in the headlights, and he ran in the house. So I closed the door, and he stayed the rest of the time in here, thank heavens. So I hope you enjoyed your 4th, and you had a very nice, happy Independence Day, celebrating this great country of ours. So in the next video, I know you're waiting for me to model the rest of my kaftans and that beautiful pair of blue and white palazzo pants and that crocheted white linen shirt to wear with it. Next video, I will model 1 or 2 of them and show you the rest of them again. And by the way, my eyelet shirt came in the mail. Remember I told you I purged the eyelet one that went with the white outfit. I'll also try and model the white outfit with a couple of my straw purses and hats. So, well, thanks so much for watching, my friends. Moosey and I do love it that you watch us and enjoy us and go back and binge on all our own videos. We feel like we know so many of you, and those of you that I don't hear from too much anymore, I wonder about you and check in with me just to let me know everything's okay. So in the next video, as I said, I will get back to modeling some of those clothes that I showed you from Ross last week. I know you want to see them. And also, I'll do a little bit of painting. Hopefully, I'll pick up some bigger rocks at the rock yard this week, and I'm able to do another wise man. Goodbye for now. I love every single one of you. God bless us all.